Welcome, folks. I am Jaby Koay, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
What's up?
We're looking at new Rockstars, Eternals, trailer breakdown, Easter eggs, and details you missed. Thank you, new Rockstars, for allowing us to react to this. Very, very much appreciated. Happy to be educated by Eric Voss.
Yes, always. My favorite YouTube teacher.
If you guys haven't already, please click on the link in the description and give the original video an upvote and subscribe to their channel. I'm sure you've done that already, but I always gotta say it just in casesies, because new Rockstars puts out great stuff. You should be subscribed to them. Please subscribe here as well and vote this video up. And hit that bell icon after you hit the subscribe button. Okay, here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Eric Voss, and Marvel's Eternals has a new... Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Eric Voss, and Marvel's Eternals has a new trailer that rewrites our creation mythology with giant armored space gods who have had quite enough of us.
How long do we have?
7 days. I'm gonna break down everything you missed in this trailer, frame by frame, to explain who the Eternals are, their relationship with Thanos and the Celestials, and how this film will crack the MCU wide open. Spoiler warning in case any of my theories are right. Also, we have a new latest obsession shirt inspired by What If Cosmic Witness, which you can get at newrockstarsmerch.com. Here we go.
I will say that even if they do spoilers, it never hurts my experience with the movie.
Yeah.
Half of the population of the universe. But the people of this planet brought everyone back with a snap of a finger.
So we open on Eternals Ajax and Icarus. Ajax is the Eternals' healer and spiritual leader who can communicate with their creators, the Celestials. She lives in this remote western house and rides up to see Icarus staring her down on top of the hill. Honestly, a worrisome sight to come home to, like an exiled gunslinger realizing, ah damn, they found me. Ajax references Thanos snapping away half of all life in Infinity War and Hulk snapping them back in Endgame. Thanos is an Eternal, son of Alars, who was an Eternal brother to the Eternal Zuras, who was Thena's father, making Thena and Thanos cousins. Now Thanos was born with a deviant gene, but since he was born to eternal parents, he remains more eternal than deviant.
Okay.
It's like a slight loophole. It's like,
sounds like a technicality.
Okay. It's okay, you're only 60% eternal and 40% deviant, so we just won't count you as a deviant, okay? Plus you're part of the family,
that's a weird technicality.
It is a weird technicality.
I don't know if that properly addresses the question everybody's having, which is, isn't Thanos a deviant? Yes, he is.
But also no.
But yes, he is. There's nothing in the contract that says, well, half deviants don't count.
Sometimes, like, when you're biracial, like we are, it depends on the room that you're in. Sometimes you go in there and you're like, hi there, I'm Asian. And then some days
so you're
like,
seeing Thanos code switches?
Hello there, I'm super white. You know? I think that's what he did.
Thanos code switches when he's conquering the universe.
Just an outcast to the Eternal Society. Now, as an obsessive watcher of stuff who cut my teeth on things like Lost, I cannot help but see this as the Lost Season 5 prologue scene, the meeting between the mystery figures Jacob and the Man in Black, both immortal brethren who dwell among ancient ruins and debate over whether to intervene in human conflicts. Just because similarly I sense an antagonistic relationship between Icarus and Ajax here. Like Icarus is someone unable to communicate with their creators, something that might have pissed him off over the years, and who later in the trailer emotionally fires his optic lasers at this same farmhouse location.
Oh my god, I didn't even see that.
Strangely absent from the rest of the Eternals and other shots of this trailer. Just keep that in mind. Meanwhile, the music is a mournful female vocal. Part of the score by composer Ramin Djawadi, who you might know from doing the amazing music of Game of Thrones and Westworld. His music there deeply interwoven with that show's similar themes of immortality and flawed creators, which are at the heart of this story. Moving on.
Interesting.
The sudden return of the population provided the necessary energy for the emergence to begin.
Okay, we see Earth at the moment Hulk snapped everyone back. As the sun rises on Europe, population zones flood with light to represent the sudden return of half the world's population.
Right.
But before we get there, you can see faint glows in Norway and then down in Central Africa, representing the regions of New Asgard and Turnsburg and Wakanda, two major regions from which backup arrived in that Battle of Earth in Endgame. Though some nerdy griping here, this would imply sunrise happened in Moscow in this moment, which would have made it in the middle of the night in upstate New York. Also, the tilt of the Earth toward the sun means that the northern hemisphere is in the middle of summer, not October when the Battle of Endgame was actually set. Gripes that we would have really no problem with if we were flat earthers, but alas, we worship at the altar of Arishem.
That was a very Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of moment. When he was on The Daily Show, he told Jon Stewart, "Your globe is spinning the wrong way." I'm like, No one's thinking about that, dude.
I know, but it just cracks me up so much with these like super nerdy gripes. It's like no one cares. No one cares.
Yeah.
But also thanks for that. That made me giggle.
Anyway, imagery shows asteroid bodies swirling into formation until one star explodes in a flash of red, where, if you go frame by frame through this, bends the space around it and stems outward briefly like blood vessels in a giant cornea, similar to the way these celestials also stem outward in these golden lines before their form appears. We could be looking at the birth or hatching of a celestial, maybe Erisham, whose color is a similar shade of red, from a cosmic body that it was using as a gestation pod. Since we know Ego, who is also a celestial in the MCU, took the form of a living planet, his brain buried deep in that planet's core, and he explained his origin story in tableaus contained in shells resembling eggshells, and pilots himself around in a ship that is modeled off of an egg. Now, ACHARA describes a coming event called the Emergence, caused apparently by the sudden return of half the population. Sounds like the Celestials might consider that sudden overpopulation a cosmic violation by the Avengers that must be fixed. So the Emergence could describe the resurrection of the Deviants, which might be seen by the Celestials as a population control protocol. But ACHARA makes it sound like the return of life spiked energy on Earth, as if the Earth is feeding from all those life forces on it, the way an egg needs to reach critical mass energy before it hatches. So this could be the emergence of a celestial gestating inside the Earth, the way Ego used his planet as a kind of shell. In the comics, there is a celestial known as...
That's what Emergency Awesome was saying as well. Initially, when I watched the trailer, I thought that the emergence maybe meant the emergence of the Deviants. And then when we watched the little breakdown from Emergency Awesome, he was saying that it was more of like the egg hatching and forming a new celestial.
Because of the snap.
Yeah, because of the energy. And then that makes sense too.
How?
When an egg is gestating, like it requires the warmth and stuff of the mother and everything in order for it to have enough, I guess, energy to pop out. For it to grow and whatever.
So having more people accomplishes this.
Well, yeah, because there was a surge in...
It's the sudden appearance of so many people that causes that.
Yes.
And that makes sense.
To me, it does, yeah. Yeah, why isn't it making sense to you? What's wrong with you? I don't know. Why? Go back to school, Jaby.
Why does a bunch of people showing up mean a celestial's gonna pop up?
Because movie says so, and because it makes sense. It required a lot of power in order to bring them back with the snap, right? And so that, I imagine, combined with the more people showing up, is just like an extra surge of power. I don't know, it makes sense to me, the way that Aaron Ross is describing it.
I see that all of you see the magic eye, and I'm still just looking at a bunch of patterns.
In the comics, there is a celestial known as Tiamat, the dreaming celestial who sleeps buried in a vault underneath the mountains on Earth. I'll come back to this batshit theory, but let's keep going.
All right, so you're gonna explain this?
How long do we have?
7 days.
We see an asteroid striking the Earth, creating a complete shockwave that blasts out the clouds in the atmosphere. We could be looking at the asteroid that formed the Gulf of Mexico right at the end of the Cretaceous period, 66 million years ago, that killed 75% of life on Earth, including all the non-avian dinosaurs. This could be part of the universe creation montage that might open the film. But the editing makes it seem like this is what causes the tidal waves that
okay, so you were right. Okay, you were right. We did the Emergency Awesome reaction to his breakdown. I was confused because he said something similar, but I was confused by the editing because it looked like that rock would cause this destruction.
And makes it seem like this is what causes the tidal waves that ravage that tropical terrain in the next shot. But in that destruction, you can make out some man-built structures that would totally not exist during the Cretaceous period. So I think this is from a different scene, maybe showing a more recent apocalyptic event like the submergence of Atlantis or Lemuria, or the new emergence that ACHARA warned about. Because this destruction just seems more uncharacteristically seismic than a tsunami or an asteroid collision. Like the crust itself is completely falling apart and opening up from below. Like tsunamis are super destructive, but they don't completely crumble land masses like that. ACHARA tells Icarus they have 7 days till this happens. Obviously some biblical allusions to the book of Genesis in which God created the earth in 7 days. In Marvel mythology, the Celestials created the earth and apparently can take us back out of it in the same amount of time. Next clip.
We're Eternals. came here 7,000 years ago
It looks like a chocolate bar.
to protect humans from the deviants.
This section offers the Eternals' origin story, the 10 of them surrounding the form of Ereshkigal, who drops a golden orb into the throat of Ajak, awakening her, and maybe a kind of blessing that allows Ajak to be their mouthpiece. Kind of like, kids, Ajak's getting the phone, okay, so don't separate from her. Mommy and Daddy are gonna be at the pool bar. Now, in the comics, the Eternals are one of 3 races created on Earth by the Celestials, along with humans and deviants. Deviants were beastly hostiles, and Eternals are these superpowered immortals who protect mankind from the deviants. Meanwhile, the Celestials' origins are explored in later comics. They're said to have been created by the Aspirants in their own image, and Aspirants were created by the first Firmament, and all of this hierarchy beneath a meta-entity known as the One Above All, considered to be a form of comics creator Jack Kirby, or in the MCU, Stan Lee or Kevin Feige. I don't expect the Eternals film to go that high up the ladder, but the Celestials created the Eternals 7,000 years ago, which, interestingly, is when many early human civilizations began recording their progress with things like trade and agriculture in our history. Like, there are specific regions on Earth where these civilizations began to spring up, like along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in ancient Mesopotamia, the Nile in Egypt, Indus River in Pakistan and the Indian subcontinent, and the Yellow River in China, and then over in the Western Hemisphere, a whole bunch of groups along the Andes Mountains in South America. So these Eternals with names like Thena, Icarus, Phastos, Gilgamesh all correspond to figures from real-world human mythology from different regions around the world. It's because those figures were probably based on these Eternals. And then more of that scene we saw in the teaser, the seaside tribe looking out at the ocean, now revealed to be a deviant attacking this boy while he's fishing. The deviant has an interesting design. Forked tongue, nostril slits, long barbels, or stingers like ones you'd see on a fish. Icarus saves this kid by firing lasers from his eyes, which, along with his powers of flight, bring up an interesting parallel to a recent episode of Marvel's What If.
Are you sure you cannot fly or shoot lasers out of your eyes or something?
Suggesting the collector might have had some vast experience with another superhero from Earth, Icarus. And as Icarus rams that deviant, he flies directly into its mouth. I don't think you can go to the collector for dental. Next clip.
Why didn't you go
That was interesting about Icarus.
all the other terrible things throughout history?
We were instructed not to interfere in any human conflicts unless deviants are involved.
By who?
So the human character, Dane Whitman, who will become Marvel's Black Knight, asks the Eternal Cersei the question we've all been wondering about since the first teaser: why the hell didn't they help the Avengers against Thanos? Well, it turns out they are bound by a kind of commandment from the Celestials to not intervene with human conflicts unless deviants are involved. And again, while Thanos does possess a deviant gene, he is still mostly eternal. So perhaps the Earth Eternals were left a bit unsure what to do when Thena's cousin showed up and started beating everyone up. And among these tragic human conflicts the Eternals had to just stand aside and watch are the European conquest of Mesoamerica, with Druig watching these pyramids burn, and a mushroom cloud from an atomic bomb, maybe even one of the ones from Hiroshima or Nagasaki. Phastos cries, consoled by Ajak among some burnt ruins. Now, Phastos, as the Eternals engineer, might have contributed to some human technological breakthroughs like nuclear energy in the early 20th century, which the Americans could have taken and used for the Manhattan Project against his will, leaving Phastos in this profound regret, like scientists like Einstein and Oppenheimer.
So I guess that's the excuse, is that he's mostly not a deviant, and that's why they didn't intervene?
I think so. It's probably some little loophole like that. But I was gonna say about the Icarus thing, that whole thing where he was saying, you know, like people called their gods and characters after them, right? If you know the Icarus story, he
flew too close to the sun.
He flew too close to the sun and he fell, right? And so I'm wondering, with Icarus being able to fly in that, and then Eric Voss saying, and then somehow he seems to kind of disappear from the trailer for a while, and maybe that's an indication of him disappearing from the movie, that maybe like Icarus, he has a fall. Not like an actual fall, maybe. I'm talking about like a fall from grace, perhaps.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm probably reading way too much into this.
No, I mean, you might be onto something there. I just don't, I mean, what's blowing my mind is how, like, because they're breaking down like all the different areas of the world where, you know, civilization basically started and whatnot. And it's like, I can't even imagine the amount of research that went into the construction of the story of Eternals.
Yeah, it's a lot of really great research that just makes sense. Ancient civilizations popped up close to rivers because that was where you could get water. It's so cool, just kind of the connections that they're making, that maybe it's not a God as we know it, you know.
Right. No, but it's just insane because, like, you know, when it comes to your average comic book movie, you don't necessarily need to go looking through all the history books to try to make connections and stuff like that. But when you're trying to link everything to our mythology globally, like everyone's different, respective mythology.
Yeah.
That's really complicated, and to try to weave all that together in a cohesive manner is a bold undertaking.
Yeah.
Which makes me even more excited for this freaking movie.
Moving on. Okay, here we see the glory shot of the celestial Arishem the Judge looming over us with amazing scale, with all the space dust swirling around him like rings floating around Saturn. Now, there are many celestials in the comics, but from concept art, we think this movie will feature at least Arishem the Judge, Jemiah the Analyzer, Nezar the Calculator, and Hargan the Measurer, who all seem to be part of a jury panel to determine a planet's worthiness to survive. Celestials have appeared in the MCU before, like Ego, Peter Quill's dad, is a celestial in the MCU, and Isan the Searcher from the Collector's Story in Guardians of the Galaxy, who once wielded the Power Stone. Also, the setting of Nowhere is the severed head of a celestial, and we've seen celestial design celebrated in the decor of the Grandmaster's Arena on Sakaar in Thor Ragnarok. Interesting how Arishem's armor appears scarred and broken up, at least compared to the later shot of Jemiah, revealing Arishem's glowing tissue underneath. I wonder if he could be coming from some epic battle among celestials.
That is not a detail I would have picked up on, because I look at that celestial and I'm like, that just looks like dope armor to me.
Yeah.
It just looks like design. Like it's deliberately done that by design. I wouldn't have looked at that as an imperfection or a scar of some kind.
Yeah, that's literally what I thought too. I was just like, oh, that's a cool looking thing. He's glowing. That's nice.
I guess if you're reading the comics and you know what he's supposed to look like, you're like, oh no, that's a scar.
He's blocking.
Perhaps what ended with Nowhere getting beheaded. Yes, I know in the Marvel Comics, Nowhere was beheaded by the Clintar deity Null, but Null is a symbiote linked with Venom, and Carnage might be a Sony thing, and Marvel Studios is probably gonna retcon away from that, if they decide to ever answer that question. And the November title contains a tiny little symbol that fades away.
I wanna say real quick, ACHARA had pointed that out, and I edited it out because we didn't exactly know what that was.
Yeah.
You initially asked if it was like DNA or something like that.
I thought it was a double helix, like a DNA.
Yeah, but but because we didn't know what it was and we were just gonna wait for the new Rockstars explanation anyhow, instead of looking stupid, we just cut that out of the trailer reaction.
For the trailer, the November 5th title card is turned
Infinity.
sideways, kind of a bow tie. Also fades there. You could see these as a symbol of a double helix DNA.
You're right. I should have just left it in. You were right.
It feels like you're in class and you answered the question correctly. You're like,
I know, but I feel bad because I cut that out of the trailer reaction.
For ancestry, and then the other one for maybe infinity, both of them fading away, like these Eternals are severing their ancestral links to the infinite Celestials.
Oh, nice connection.
I haven't seen some of them for centuries.
Hi.
Hello.
This is what the end of the world looks like. At least we have front row seats.
Okay, we embark deep into the Amazon rainforest to Druig's commune.
Them separating from the Celestials makes a heck of a lot of sense, because the thing about it is they have spent their entire lives not intervening. And it's like, okay, time to intervene.
It is time.
Fuck all you.
It's like the teenage rebellion phase where you're like, I'm not listening to you, mom and dad anymore. Let me live my life. It just took them 7,000 years.
What if they come to find out that's what they were supposed to do all that time?
It was a test.
And and then they found out that this whole time they've just been watching humanity suffer and not intervening. And the test was, you at some point need to step up and rebel and intervene.
You need to make your own choices now.
Like all of those sad montages is now like one epic sad montage of like, oh my God, I could have regret.
That's super sad.
No regrets.
Now, Druig is known as the moody loner of the Eternals, and now he is living in present-day Peru. It looks like some community isolated from modern society, perhaps using mind control, given the culty look of this group. Athena and Gilgamesh spar with weapons and armor conjured from mystical energy.
I love that, by the way. I love this idea. I don't know how the hell you pull this off as an actor. I have no idea how you execute this stuff as a performer. It's like, okay, now you have to pretend that you're holding a weapon. You got to pretend that you've got armor. Unless they actually have stuff on them and they just do a replacement of the arm and the whatever her bow staff is that she's holding to make it easier to like have that contact.
Yeah, and like the weight of it as well. Otherwise it just looks like you're just holding thin air.
Yeah.
You know?
I love this idea that it's like made from just energy or something.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Gilgamesh's gauntlet with the circular pattern that actually composes all of this mystical energy that they use looks a bit like the Infinity Gauntlet forged by Eitri from his model. Then this volcano erupts. Now, this is not Vesuvius from Loki, but I think it could be connected to the Great Cataclysm from the comics, a disaster in an ancient war that involved the Atlanteans, the Deviants, and the Celestials. The ancient kingdom of Atlantis, which used to be land-based, tried to repel a deviant invasion by opening up magma pits, creating volcanic eruptions all over the continent. And the second host of the Celestials then caused a nuclear cataclysm against the Deviants that ended up sinking the deviant-controlled kingdom of Lemuria, but also Atlantis, which could be the way we get Namor the Submariner in the MCU, or get an answer of what those underwater earthquakes Koay mentioned were all about. Either way, this does not seem like a natural volcanic eruption, because in that smoke, and actually later in the closer shot of the lava, you can see a bolt of golden lightning and a violet flash in the smoke plume. This just looks like the result of some kind of interference by the Eternals and or the Deviants. Sprite says,
This is what the end of the world looks like. At least we have front row seats.
Which reminds me a lot of Steve Buscemi's line in Armageddon.
Look, we got front row tickets to the end of the earth.
Moving on.
Is that never talking about it again, Eric Voss?
He did say that, didn't he?
We're not supposed to talk about Armageddon.
Well, it was a fun movie.
No,
whatever.
it was, as a kid, it was crazy fun.
Yeah.
But as a grown-up, you're like, oh God. They actually made this?
You know what's never saved the planet? Your sarcasm.
We've loved these people since the day we arrived.
I might be the only one, but when I hear that music cue where it says Chloe Zhao, it immediately reminds me of Star Wars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like the operatic sound of the Star Wars trailers.
Every time I hear Angelina Jolie say, we've loved these people since the day I arrived, I get a little misty. I'm not going to lie. I don't know. It's probably the music.
That love didn't do shit. She just watched humanity rip each other apart.
I know. It still makes me want to cry.
What value is your love, Angelina Jolie? You're not intervening when we're all killing each other.
Yeah.
Out here in the streets.
If that's love, I don't know if I want it.
Yeah, exactly.
Take it back.
So in the Eternals treasure room, there's a golden statue of a cat, perhaps the Egyptian goddess of Bastet, from whom the Wakandan panther deity Bast was derived. Previous teasers showed this room also contains all kinds of historical relics, stuff from ancient Rome, and even the Holy Grail cup from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Maybe Makari is under house arrest here because she intervened and saved a human from a falling column in one of those past disasters. Fastos raises the Eternal ship from beneath the earth from what looks like an archaeological dig site already underway. Sprite puts on a fireworks display based on the blue walls, looks like the ancient city of Babylon that we've seen in other footage. And notice how she first shows them the various constellations and a Viking ship rowing toward a mountainous coastline. This could be depicting the ancient people of Norway, who also benefited from divine intervention, the Asgardians. Marvel's What If Episode 1 included an Italian textbook about the Tesseract with the passages describing how the ancients followed the constellations and from those formed their beliefs in the gods, which would include Odin of Asgard, but also in this case, maybe even these Eternals as well. Moving on.
When you love something, you protect it.
What is that?
Isn't that the egg?
I'm waiting for Eric Voss to tell me.
Icarus and Circe bond with these ancient farmers that were shown in the previous trailer as people they use their powers to cultivate crops. They may have actually used parts of the Embers of Genesis that we learned about in What If, which was an artifact that vastly expands agricultural production on any planet. Dane and Circe are in Camden Lock in London as a double-decker bus flips toward them, but notice behind Dane there is Sprite, but also a duplicate Sprite to the left, and then 3 other duplicate Circes calmly walking across the street. And this is because one of Sprite's abilities is to cast illusions, which I assume she's using against whatever deviants are wrecking this bus at them. But then Circe uses her power to turn the whole bus into rose petals. Hope no one was on it.
I was just thinking that what Eric Voss said, I was just like, I hope nobody's on that bus.
I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking about like Circe, and like in ancient Greek mythology, Circe is the goddess of magic. And so I was wondering when I watched the trailer, I didn't know if that was Sprite's power or if that was Circe's power, because it would make more sense for me that it's Circe's power to like do magic. I don't know.
Is it at all weird that Kit Harington is interacting with another character named Circe?
Oh yeah, different spelling, I think, maybe.
Oh, is it really?
Rose petals. Hope no one was on it. This is a bit similar to when Doctor Strange turned an attack into butterflies in his wizard duel with Thanos.
Or the bubbles.
Then Cersei appears in this mysterious, vast chamber. What is this place? It's got triangular panels inlaid with more of those golden circular patterns. But behind the panels is this much bigger room with a steampunky looking column containing a glowing orb. And this looks a lot like the device that Phastos designed on a smaller scale in the first teaser. Also a golden steampunk column with a glowing center. Now, using Cersei's height to scale, this has got to be way too big to fit on the Eternal ship. Instead, I'm wondering if this could be either inside of a Celestial or inside the Celestial buried on Earth, because there is no light source here other than that one orb of the column. And when Cersei touches the smaller panel of the wall, it hardens over into a wall of scales. But inside of that were some crystalline geodes and what looks like nerve endings. Maybe a kind of fusion of tissue and minerals, kind of similar to the multifaceted composition of the Celestials' armor and tissue. This could be an extreme macro close-up of celestial tissue.
Interesting. So yeah, like the egg, like Emergency Awesome was saying.
Yeah, consider my mind officially blown. I'm just like, whoa, this is so cool.
Yeah.
How do you do, like, okay, I have, my hopes are so high for this movie. My hopes are so stupid high for this movie because the idea just resonates with me so strongly. How do you tell this story in 2.5 hours? Because you look at all the locations they're going to. Is the whole movie one montage? Like, how do you do this movie and it's not a complete mess? I feel like at the end of this film, I'm gonna wonder why they didn't split this up into more movies. Just looking at the single trailer, I'm like, this absolutely should be more than one film. Like, they're trying to make it simple and streamlined, going, the world's gonna end in 7 days. But you're covering a lot of ground here.
The whole 7 days thing is just a nice...
It focuses the story.
Yeah, it's a nice construct, right?
Yeah.
Because it gives us a sense of urgency. Otherwise, the origin story could just go on forever and ever and ever, which in itself would be interesting, but setting it within that construct of like, we have 7 days to figure this shit out, like just makes it more exciting, I guess.
Sure. I'm just saying, I'm gonna wonder why the hell this wasn't more than one movie. I'm already wondering that.
Can't protect any of them.
The Eternals work together to slay this deviant in that fishing village, and then another Celestial, this is Jemiah the Analyzer, manifests himself out of nowhere, which we also saw the Eternals doing earlier when they walked up. And this big guy beams energy from his hands in a kind of cat's cradle that swirls together a galaxy. I assume this is all part of some epic universal creation montage. Makari leaps at supersonic speeds, and then Thena is held by this deviant, but one with more humanoid features. Now in the comics, Thena has a forbidden romance with the deviant leader, Crow.
So, I guess that was accurate. I just saw that as grody melody. Like, she didn't want to be touched by his ass, his stank ass. Like, don't touch me, bitch. I just put my makeup on and everything.
No,
like,
I mean, there definitely still is that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like when you meet up with an ex-boyfriend that you maybe still have feelings towards, and it's like, oh my God, no, you're so toxic for me, but I'm still attracted to you. Please stop this. I know, okay, oh my God. I'm not speaking from personal experience. I'm just empathizing, okay?
Who this probably is. And he has 4 eyes across his face.
I actually didn't notice that before.
You didn't notice his 4 eyes? I noticed it from the get-go. That's what makes him look so creepy. Anytime you do something like that, it does something to, it has this sort of icky response, I think, in the human body. Because there have been instances I've seen, like billboards like that, where they showed stacked eyes, like eyes on top of the other. And every time I've seen it, I'm like, it kind of messes with your brain because that's not right. It's not supposed to be like that.
I don't know why I didn't notice it before. I think for me, it was just like the elongated shape of his face that kind of was like, oh, that's a little bit odd.
On another note, I really, really hope that this looks better by the time we get to the cinema to watch this, because this is the one part of the trailer where I'm like, yeah, that didn't look like it was a final render pass. Are we in 2002? Why does he look like that?
Fair enough.
I feel like he should look better than that, being hypercritical or persnickety. I'm like, that's the one part where I'm like, yo, you could have done a better job there. But everything else in the trailer looks fantastic.
But as he strokes her cheek, a faint glimmer of her golden energy glows from under her skin.
What?
Next
what?
clip.
Where?
I didn't catch that.
the
Icarus
music.
fights a flying deviant over the Amazon rainforest region of Druig's community, and he lasers off its wing and then tackles it to the ground. I don't know, I just get the feeling that the deviants might not be all that bad, and Icarus is just going Homelander on these guys against the wishes of the other Eternals. Let's move on to the last clip.
I bet you've built the perfect safe house. I mean, what's this even made of? Vibranium?
Fall collection. IKEA.
Okay, so Icarus and Cersei are meeting Phastos in his home, where you can see some games all
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can see a PlayStation controller
all over the place. Chess, Connect 4, coloring book, game controller, other toys, because Phastos has a family with kids and a husband. Icarus thinks the table's made of vibranium, but it's actually the IKEA Fall Collection. Setting this movie in, I'm gonna say fall 2023, maybe even the 7 days after the endgame battle in October 2023, since Ajax said 5 years ago, and originally this movie was supposed to come out right before WandaVision, a show that takes place 3 weeks after Endgame. Why does that matter? Well, because the world is still there in WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Spider-Man Far From Home, so I think we can assume those Celestials effectively effed off.
How much you want to bet there's gonna be some controversy around what he just said when the film finally comes out? Phastos, that's the name of the guy, right?
Oh yeah, he's the first openly...
No, I'm aware of that. Well, I'm saying when it finally comes out in the films. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who watch the movies that aren't paying attention to the news. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's always going to be some people up in arms about something. I think it's cool. Like, you know, we had Loki come out and kind of be like, I don't differentiate like man, woman, horse, animal,
but
whatever.
I could just hear the people on the internet already being like, how come Marvel and the gay mafia is trying to shove their gay agenda down our throats, our straight throats?
I'm into it. I like it.
We're going to be talking a lot more about this movie as it gets closer, but you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EAVoss. Follow and subscribe to New Rockstars. Thanks for watching.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was fun. I really liked that.
Thank you,
so
Eric
cool.
Voss. Very, very much appreciated. That was very educational.
Yes.
And it's exactly what I needed. He warned us at the beginning about how like there might be spoilers in here because if he's right about anything. And as I said earlier, it for me just gets me more excited.
Yeah, 100%. Like I love kind of speculating about, you know, what might happen in it. And you get a certain satisfaction when you go watch the movie and it's like, that theory was correct. Or like, oh no, they managed to surprise us. And I think that's what, you know, the filmmakers try and do, right? Because they know that the hardcore fans and the comic book readers are out there with their theories going, yeah, so I know everything and this is what's going to happen and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm sure they're going to throw in a few curveballs in there.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But him breaking down the concepts deeper and deeper in this video, it's so thrilling because it's an area of comic book lore that has not really been explored in films a heck of a lot. The creationism aspect. Agreed. I was gonna say like the whole gods and stuff aspect has definitely been explored. Sure, like
the creationism.
The creationism and that coming home to reckon and all that stuff. Like that's, I mean, obviously we have stuff like Hercules and whatnot where he came from gods, but like it's not really deep diving, huh?
Yeah, and Wonder Woman and Thor.
Sure, but it's not really like deep diving and making that like a central focal point of the story, and us having to deal with whatever that is, like the rules that were established and all that stuff from those creatures, beings, whatever you want to call them, exploring the upper branches of our origins and having to fight with that. Like that's such a cool idea to me. I love it so much. I wish they would tell us comic books that we should read if we want to get even deeper into this stuff.
he kind of mentions them, like which comic book it came from and stuff like that. But there's so much information in the video that it kind of passes by real quick. So I'd feel like, you know, you'd have to watch it a couple times and like maybe take notes, or while you're watching it the first time, just take notes on it and be like, oh, I should read this comic or I should read that comic. It certainly has made me more interested in wanting to like catch up on that stuff.
Nothing has made me want to read comic books again, because I've largely not been reading comic books in the last 2 years. Like I think I was reading Daredevil and then I just stopped like cold, and it's just because I got busy. But like this movie, this story is making me want to pick up comic books again. I just don't know where to start.
Yeah, it's overwhelming because there's just so much out there of the source material.
You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I am more excited than ever. I feel like a kid again. So subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon, all notifications, and check out our other reactions, reviews, short films, vlogs, and interviews. And also subscribe to New Rockstars if you haven't already. Give the original video an upvote and let them know that Jaby sent you, if you could be so kind. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.